You have been told a story. It is a modern fairy tale, spun from the looms of public relations firms and broadcast on the hypnotizing screens of global media. In this story, a brave, young crown prince named Mohammed bin Salman rises to cleanse a kingdom steeped in corruption. He is the reformer, the visionary. The narrative is alluring, simple, and powerful, and it is a complete, meticulously crafted lie. The centerpiece of this fairy tale took place in November 2017. The setting was not a grim dungeon, but a symbol of unimaginable opulence, the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Riyadh. You saw the headlines. Hundreds of Saudi Arabia's most powerful princes, ministers, and billionaire businessmen, summoned and detained within its gilded walls. The official story called it a crackdown on corruption, a necessary, if dramatic, step to reclaim over $100 billion for the nation's treasury. The world applauded. It was presented as justice, as a sign that nobody, no matter how royal or wealthy, was above the law. But we must ask the question they never want you to ask. What truly happened behind the polished brass doors of that five-star prison? This was not an act of justice. It was an act of corporate warfare. Imagine the scene not as a police operation, but as the most ruthless board meeting in history. The attendees were not criminal suspects. They were the old guard, the shareholders of Saudi Arabia, Inc. A sprawling, inefficient conglomerate run by a squabbling family. For decades, they controlled the nation's key assets: banks, media companies, construction giants, technology firms. Their power was decentralized, a network of personal fiefdoms. They were the competition, and the man who summoned them, Mohammed bin Salman, was not a prosecutor. He was the aspiring CEO, executing a hostile takeover. The Ritz-Carlton was not a holding cell, it was a negotiation room with no exit. There were no charges filed, no lawyers present, no due process. There were only interrogators, sleep deprivation, and relentless psychological pressure. The goal wasn't to prove past crimes. The goal was to force a signature on a contract. The detainees were given a choice, but it was the choice between a cage of gold and a coffin of wood. Surrender your assets, your shares, your control over your corporate empires, and you can walk free. Resist, and you disappear. This wasn't the state recovering stolen funds. This was a forced asset transfer, a leveraged buyout of an entire country's elite, orchestrated under the guise of the law. Consider the case of Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, a global investor with stakes in everything from Twitter to Citigroup. Was he a paragon of virtue? Unlikely, but his crime wasn't corruption, it was his independent power base. He was a global figure who didn't owe his influence to the new crown prince. Inside the Ritz, he was allegedly hung upside down, a potent message to a man accustomed to penthouse suites. When he finally emerged, 83 days later, he was a changed man. He maintained his innocence, yet the control of his vast kingdom holding company was no longer unequivocally his. This was not a plea bargain. It was the forced acquisition of a rival firm. And where did the money go? The mythologized $100 billion. Did it build hospitals for the people? Pave roads? Fund education? The records, for those who know where to look, tell a different story. The vast majority of these seized assets and cash settlements were not absorbed into the national budget. They were funneled directly into a single, monolithic entity, the Public Investment Fund, or PIF. This is the key. The PIF is the financial engine of the new Saudi Arabia, and it has only one chairman, one master, Mohammed bin Salman himself. In one swift, brutal move, he did not eliminate corruption, he centralized it. He stripped the wealth from hundreds of powerful hands and consolidated it into his own. He transformed a web of competing interests into a single, colossal financial weapon, ready to be deployed on the global stage at his sole command. The Ritz-Carlton was not a purge. It was a merger, a violent, coercive merger that left one man as the sole owner of the new Saudi Inc. This is not a story about a kingdom. This is the blueprint for a new kind of entity, the corporation state. A nation run with the ruthless efficiency of a Fortune 500 company, where citizens are recategorized as assets or liabilities, and civil liberties are expensive overheads to be cut. The social reforms you hear about, women driving, cinemas opening, are not signs of a liberal awakening. They are a calculated marketing campaign, a rebranding effort to make the new corporate structure palatable to Western investors and to distract from the construction of a digital panopticon that would make Orwell blush. This was not just an internal Saudi affair, it was a meticulously planned operation, the first critical step in a much larger game. Mohammed bin Salman might be the CEO, ruthless and ambitious, But the business plan for this hostile takeover was not drafted in Riyadh. It was written in the boardrooms of New York, London, and Silicon Valley. So as we leave the ghosts of the Ritz-Carlton behind, a new question emerges. Now that one man controls the largest pool of liquid capital on the planet, what is his next move? Who helped him draw the map? Who designed the tools for this unprecedented consolidation of power? An operation this sophisticated requires architects. And to find them, we must follow the money, not from the old elite to the PIF, but from the PIF outwards, into the waiting hands of the global titans of finance and technology who were standing by, ready to cash their check as the true beneficiaries of the coup.